service-related disabilities should be living in the woods and not having access to some place to live. But our programs are all unique. The latest one that we started is a day center for folks who are living in the woods. Even though we provide in the wintertime up to 140 nights of shelter a night, in Cecil County it's not enough. We have folk living in the woods, whole families living there. So we started this day program. It wasn't easy to do. Met a lot of community oppositions. We know sometimes these things do. But that is one where folk can walk in, even if they have no place to live, can touch base with getting cleaned up, get a shower, get clothes, meals, someone to pray with them, someone to talk with them, and just find a path back to a good life. Anyway, I wrote a copy of our newspaper, Loaves and Fishes. I know it's advertising on your time, but if you'd like to see a copy of this, it describes all of our programs. I left some copies over there, and please take some if you'd like. I got started in this because as a young person, and many of us, I know many of you, it's been a joy to be here and to hear some stories and to get to know some of you. This has been a great meeting. And I know many of you have had tough times as children growing up. I did. I had a real tough time. Back in the 60s, when I was a teenager, through a family which was highly dysfunctional, mother who was mentally ill and eventually put into a mental institution. As a teenager, I had no place to live. They didn't even use the term homeless then, but it was a rough life. It was rough trying to piece it together. I was not Presbyterian. I was not interested in religion. I was just trying to find a way to survive. And as a 14-year-old going into 15, a group of Presbyterians adopted me as their mission project. They literally took me on because they knew I was having a hard time. They took me on not to join their church, but just to befriend me. Now the upshot of it was, if I move away from there, it's not working, is it? So I'll stay here. The upshot of it was, I can take this off. Oh, it's so much to be free of this. The upshot was their befriending me brought me to Christ, brought me to a relationship with Jesus Christ, not to become a Presbyterian. But that community of people was so loving, so caring for me personally, as a person. They took the time to enter into a relationship with me as friends, not as evangelists, but as friends, and not as Presbyterians, not even as Christians. But they introduced me through their lives and the power of Christ in their lives to Jesus, and my life has never been the same. Now, the youth leader of that church also befriended me. At that time, when I was coming at my own problems with homelessness and trying to put my own life together, he put me in his car one day, loaded with sandwiches and coffee in the back of the car, and he said, "I want you to go with me, because I've been doing this for a while and I think you'd be interested in it." Took me downtown Philadelphia. This was in the 60s when the term homeless wasn't even used. And there I saw what looked like a pile of rags on top of a steam grate. I thought, what is this all about? What is it doing here? He gets out of the car, leaves me sitting in the seat, goes over and lightly touches on top of that what looked like a pile of rags, but was a human being sleeping on the grate covered with rags. Like touches them, and he says, "Hey, it's me, it's Bill." He brought him coffee and sandwiches. I'll never forget that touch on his shoulder. Never forget Bill reaching out, touching him. The person underneath that pile of rags came alive and was human and interacted with him and smiled. It was incredible to me. I will never forget when he put his hand in and said, "Hey, it's me, it's Bill." I thought to myself, when they talk about Jesus, I can visualize Jesus. I can visualize that were Jesus walking up and placing his hand and saying, hey, it's me, it's Jesus. That's what got me in. It's not what they told me, it's what they did. Now, I thought at the time, this is what all Presbyterians are like. This is really wonderful, I can't believe this. That got me into the Presbyterian fold. And that's true. I thought Presbyterians walked on water. Well, I could say more, but anyway. I got involved with that as a young person, full of zeal of a new Christian, doing whatever I could in churches that I thought were doing something to help people. And one of them was an inner city church in Philadelphia that had a ministry to the community there, the young people and the homeless in that area. It was run by a dedicated woman, a small church, and it was not doing well, run by a very dedicated woman keeping this program going. One day the clerk of the session came up to her on Sunday morning and said, we don't want this program anymore. He said, these people are coming in here and the chairs are sticky. And some of our church folk are getting stuck to their chairs on Sunday morning, Sunday school. So we don't want these people in here anymore. That was the perspective of the clerk of the session. Well, I, filled with holy zeal, was so angry that I wrote a nasty letter to him, to the session, and to the Stady Clerk of Philadelphia Presbytery. I was just a kid, I was a teenager. Well, that got a real furor going. Clerk of the session came up to me and kicked me out of the church too, and said, you have no right to write a letter. In the Presbyterian church, you have no standing. You're not a member of this church, you're not a minister, you're not an elder, you have no standing. That's true what he said to me. At that point I thought, I guess I'll become a Presbyterian minister. So you make these crazy decisions in life and you're stuck with them. And that's where I invested. That truthfully was my motivation. Not because I wanted to, prove I was right, but because I loved what the Presbyterians had done for me. Had been Methodist, I'm stuck with the Methodists, I guess, but I just loved what they did for me. I wanted to give something back to them. But I also wanted to give something back to the folk that I knew were suffering as I am suffering. It never leaves you. The fact of being homeless, or some of you had life experiences, as children, the stuff never leaves you. I'm not going to dwell on my experience, but it was horrible. I understand where homeless folk are coming from, especially homeless kids. It never leaves you. I have a passion that the church minister to them, body and soul. It's highly important. Now, there's two things that I'm going to say about this at the outset that are very important to me that probably, it may not make much sense, but I've got to say them anyway. First, it happened to me at our Clairvaux Farm location. I said, if you want to read about these different projects, pick up a copy of Loaves and Fishes. Our main place is a farm in Cecil County, Maryland, called Clairvaux Farm. And there it's a shelter for families with children, also some women and men, but mainly families with children. And it's a place with a lot of buildings. It's a central dining hall, and it's a very happy place. We have mission trips that come all year. If your church is interested, by the way, they come from all over the Synod. Some of you churches may have been there already, but we'd love to have you. Anytime during the year, we host mission trips. I was walking to the dining hall one cold morning, and it was cold. I could smell bacon and coffee. You know what that does to you? Out in the cold, and you're starving. And you smell bacon and coffee. I mean, you might as well. And there's two things you should not ever eat. Of course, we had it this morning, but that's for once in a while. It's just that after the meals from this weekend, we have to go back to regular eating now. It can be very difficult. But I could have skipped the bacon, but I wanted that coffee really badly. That's why I wanted that cup of coffee. So I was dying to get into the dining hall. I made a beeline just when they opened at 8 o'clock to get in. And as I walked into the front door, standing on the porch outside, in the cold, was a 4-year-old girl who had just come with her family. Now, the kids, when they're not with their parents, have to wait with their parents now before they can come in the dining hall. So they have to be escorted in by their parents. It's kind of bad with kids in there by themselves. So she was waiting there in the cold, hopefully not very long, but she was all ready to go in. Just as about to touch the handle of that door,